afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the CEO Story. And we've got a fantastic guest and a close friend of mine, Ian Koniak of Sales Coaching. So Ian Koniak Sales Coaching helps people and sales teams develop their skills, their leadership, their mindset, so they can ultimately sell more. Ian, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you again. I know it's been a few weeks since the event, so it's great to reconnect.
Ian and I are both members of Sam Ovens Quantum Masterminds, where we met, and such a great experience there. But Ian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your history, and how you really help these salespeople develop and sell more? You've got such an interesting track record and amazing career in sales with over $100 million sold, which is fantastic. How do you then go about helping other people untap their sales potential?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's no one silver bullet that I work on. That's why my program is a 1-year membership, because I always say, like, the thing that helps you make $1 million in sales or achieve, whatever your goals are that are the most ambitious is not getting to that point. It's becoming the person who's able to do that. So my program is really about developing I think of it as like personal development for salespeople, really about helping them develop the discipline, the focus, the skills, and really the cadence and the operating routine of a peak performer. So much like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or any elite athlete or business person will have a coach. I'm that coach to salespeople to help them really develop the operating rhythm to be capable of performing in that level. And that's really a combination of mindset, habits, and skills. And I take them through, depending on the level of which they want to work with me. It could be private, it could be group coaching, or it could simply be online and taking some of my courses. But ultimately, it's taking through a 3-phase approach of mindset, habits, and skills to develop where they can kind of feed into all 3 of those pillars that lead to success.
Fantastic. So let's dig into a little bit more of your background. I know you did a lot of years with Salesforce and worked your way up, had a huge team. But you just want to share in your experience some of the ups and downs of working for such a big company, doing huge enterprise value sales, and then switching to your own business and kind of that entrepreneurial journey and how you kind of navigated those waters.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, well, first of all, I'll say I love it on the other side. It is better on the other side. So if you do have an entrepreneurial bug or any desire to go do your own thing, like, get started. There's no perfect time. So for me, I think obviously, I'm a sole breadwinner for my family. My wife is a full-time mom. I have 2 young kids, and I was making a pretty substantial income when I was at Salesforce. So for me, the big thing was, how am I going to go and build a business from scratch? How am I going to go and do this? And, fortunately, my background lended itself well to kind of jumping in and getting off to a really quick start, because I had gone through a lot of, challenges myself in Salesforce that helped serve me as an entrepreneur that I knew how to be prepared for. And I also had a lot of skills where I can teach and a lot of credibility from spending 20 years in sales. So my background is, I spent 20 years, 19 years, selling both enterprise software to large companies, but also selling up and down the streets copy machines. So I've done kind of the transactional business to business sales, and I also have done the software sales. And my transition between like the traditional sales and more strategic selling did not come easy. There was a period in my career where I missed my goal 3 years in a row. And during that time, I battled with addiction. I battled with self-worth going down the toilet, because I was always attached to being a top performer. And when I didn't have my results reflect that, then I started, my whole identity was kind of put into question, and I dealt with it in some very healthy ways. So, personally, I had to take a step back and realize and look in the mirror and say, what, maybe what I'm doing, which was hustling and grinding and doing a lot of activity, maybe this isn't effective for selling large enterprise deals and strategic deals. Maybe I need to look at, things a little differently. So I ended up in 2017, I joined a mastermind similar to what we're in, but it was for sales professionals, specifically in business to business enterprise software. And I got hired a coach, joined a mastermind, and really learned like how to evolve my identity as someone who was being very self-centered and very focused on hitting my own goals to being somebody who was more outward focused, more about hitting my own clients' goals and really understanding and taking the time to know what they want and be a service provider rather than selfishly just trying to hit quota. And that transition from an inward focused mindset to an outward focus actually led me to become #1 at Salesforce globally and make 7 figures. And I'm like, man, I'm onto something. Then I repeated it the next year and then almost died the following year. And I'm like, holy shit, if I died today, I would have kept all this stuff to myself. I need to start giving back. And so, my birth story and my origin story for my business really came from a near-death experience where I said, you know what, I need to start really helping other people. And it started with simply just making Instagram videos and, didn't have a product, didn't have a service, but really just did want to give back and help people. And then eventually people wanted to pay me for my services. And that kind of led to coaching. And then I didn't really leave Salesforce until that coaching business was greater than my income at Salesforce. And I had proven the business model.
Let's pause you there for a second, because that's actually a really good segue. There's a lot of value that you've just shared with us. So let's kind of take a second and break that down. Is that you had a loss of identity early on when you didn't hit your target. So you as a person, as a mindset, were really attached to being a top performer. And I think a lot of people will be able to resonate with that when trying to kind of, let's call it overachievers or like the top few percent of people, right? Because that is a huge hit or kick in the teeth, and you're doing it year on year on year, and it's reducing your self-worth. So that's a mindset thing in terms of how did you then, you talked about addiction and things like that, but how did you get past and cope with that and turn it around to really break through that barrier? Because I think a lot of people will be able to resonate with that.
Well, I mean, I hate to say this, but you almost have to hit a rock bottom, right? You have to come to a place where you feel so shitty that, you basically say enough is enough. And no one changes unless they want to change. And I was pretty stubborn my first year. I missed it. I thought it was my territory or my boss, or I blamed everything else except myself. The second year I hit it, I still blamed, or the second year I missed, I still blamed my boss. And I actually changed teams at Salesforce. I went to another division. I said, you know what, this is enterprise thing's not for me. I need more at bats. And I moved down a segment to commercial. So I had more accounts. And then I missed it literally by one deal. I hit 95% of my goal that third year after I changed teams. And that felt way worse than the 2 years I missed it by a lot, because I had tried everything. I had literally tried changing teams. I had a new manager. I had good accounts. And now it was just finally time to look in the mirror and face myself, that I was the common denominator between success and failure. So at that point, I remember it was the last day of the fiscal year. I had a splitting headache. I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I had missed it by one deal that I thought I was going to get. And when that deal, didn't come through on the last day of the year, I felt this, like for the first time in my life, this pulsing migraine. My ears were ringing, and I was staring at myself in the mirror, and I just screamed at the top of my lungs, the F word. And I said, fuck, and I was so fed up. And it was like the worst pain I've ever experienced outside of, some other things that happened with my addiction. But in my career, it had been the worst pain. And at that moment, that was the catalyst, the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. In that moment, I said, I never want to feel this way again. I never want to be at the last day of the fiscal year, missing by one deal. I will do whatever it takes to make a change. And honestly, Tony Robbins talks a lot about this. He says, change.
I was literally just going to say that. One of the business mastery events that I went to, Tony talked about kind of the two barriers here. You've got a barrier upper limit and a lower limit. And most people live in the middle of that barrier, and they call that the comfort zone. And they only break through either when someone hits rock bottom, like you just mentioned, or someone's having a great time and they break through the top. But it's in the middle that most people live in that comfort zone. And I totally agree with what you're saying in terms of the way you've got to hit rock bottom. You've got to hit one of these two limits in order to progress to the next stage.
100%. So he says change occurs when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. Because it is hard to change your habits, to get out of your comfort zone, to adopt new ways of selling, to restart, what you think and throw it out the window. But that's kind of what happened to me. I was just in so much pain, and I said, I'll do whatever it takes. And at that point, I was ready. I was ready to actually receive and to grow. And I started with this beginner's mindset. And fortunately now, we're talking 6 years later, I've never stopped with this idea that I don't know everything and I need to learn from people better than me. And that was kind of my start, my entry into personal development is, you know, to a place where my ego had to be shattered in order to really receive what I needed to from others.
I think that's a lot of it, as well. As you talk about ego, and it's so true. Is I always try and leave my ego at the door, is one of the sayings I like to kind of hone down on, because I think it's really important to be present, but be focused. Back to what you're saying in mindset, but not to think that, hey, I'm the shit, I can do everything by myself. And it's like, it's so much bigger than any one person. And if you leave the ego at the door, then it allows you to kind of take that step a lot sooner to the next level.
It attracts people in business. People want humble, you know, they want people that don't talk about themselves, that don't need to prove anything, that are humble and interested in them. And I always like to say, if you want to be good in sales, be interested, not interesting. Okay. If you just take the time to understand people and what they care about and their goals and their challenges, and really ask those second, third, fourth level deep questions, they're going to want to work with you because clearly you care about them. And it's just like something that, you know, is not taught in sales, to like be a good, caring person. But I feel like that's what it took for me to kind of break through that threshold, is to stop caring only about myself and start to actually care about others. And that's what I teach. And, you know, it takes time. You sometimes just need to realize what you're doing, the way you're doing it, is not making you happy. It's not working. And sometimes you need to look in the mirror and say, maybe I'm not as good of a person as I think I am. And maybe my habits and my behaviors are not aligned with my values and my beliefs about myself. So I've been on this journey for 6 years, and it's, you know, this way of working and thinking has just been brought blessing after blessing. So I can't advocate strongly enough for this. And it's for everything. There's always going to be areas that you have to optimize. There's always going to be learnings that you need. I mean, it's just a way to live your life where the bar continues to get set higher and higher and higher. I mean, I just ran my first marathon last Sunday, and thank you, brother. I crushed the record that I had previously set. And, you know, now that bar is like, I can run a marathon. Now I can do more. And that becomes your standard. So every time you achieve a certain level, that the new bar is raised, the new standards are raised. So it's just like
you become a new person. And like you said at the start, it's the journey along the way. The person you are at the start of the journey is not the person you are at the end. And it's the team that gets you there too. It's the team that's got you where you are today is not the same team that's going to get you where you want to be in the future. So it's always upgrading yourself, mindset, personally, but also the people around you, and like masterminds, like, and trainings and things like that. It's all different levels to increase that value ultimately.
That's right. That's right. Maybe I started with the sales, but then I needed, like, I always say mastermind. I was in addiction recovery. So I had a 12-step group that I was with, and they were a mastermind. And then I had a mentor and a sponsor. And then now I'm with Sam Ovens, who specifically helps with, you know, entrepreneurs in our space. So it's really always evolving who you're learning from based on the level you get to. So, but it is a journey. And I think 95%, I'm guessing, you know, out of thin air, but 95% of people I don't think are willing to invest in themselves in this way, to really pay for help, pay for a mentor, hire a coach, join a mastermind. And I think that's what holds them back, is they think they can do it on their own. And unfortunately you can't, because if you would have, you already would have, right? If you could do it on your own. So,
you know, we deal with this on a daily basis, and it's like, maybe you can do it on your own, but you're going to learn a lot of harsh lessons, and it's going to take you a lot longer to do that. I personally always prefer to get a mentor, whether that means paid free, whether it's 1 hour a month or 1 hour a year. Getting the valued advice and leadership from someone who's been there and done it before, time and time again, has helped me accelerate my businesses tenfold. So that's the way I see it.
And your bar gets raised, right? There's a guy I follow, Ed Milet. You probably have seen some of his talks. He says there's two ways to like raise the bar. One is you surround yourself with people who are achieving at a higher level, and through osmosis, you can see what's possible, right? And then the second is you set goals that are actually push you out of your comfort zone, where you have to, you know, train, where you have to go accelerate. And then in that process, your identity actually evolves during
Totally agree. I got a great story about that as well. So a couple of weeks back, I'd done a new collaboration with someone, and it went really well. So I called up my mentor. I'm like, hey, are you free for a cigar? I want to celebrate something. Let's go grab a cigar and whiskey. So he's like, yeah, I'm free. So we both go to our cigar lounge in Beverly Hills, and we light up some nice Cohibas, Cuban cigars, and we have a drink and we're talking. So I'm like, look, this guy's my mentor. He's a billionaire, right? Multi-billionaire. So I don't want to make it all about me. So I asked him, hey, how's your day been? What you've been up to? And he just so happened to have a fantastic day as well. So he continues to tell me about his day. And this guy has made a considerable amount of money in that day that he just closed a deal. He's going to make a couple of $1 billion from it. And I was like, oh my goodness, like it just raised my level. I had $1 million day and I was over the moon with it, like overjoyed to the point I wanted to sit with him, talk to him about it, kind of run through the numbers. And he'd made $1 billion that day. And again, that wasn't that one day. There's a lot of work that goes into that. But the fact that we came together and it just opened my eyes to the next level, which is back to the point that you were making, is like, regardless of if we're talking about 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, or a billion, there's always that next level that someone is achieving. And it's, are you in the right room with the right people? And are you willing to build a relationship where they're able to talk to you about it or willing to talk to you about it?
Yeah, it's such a good point, because you think, if you're running and you're the top dog in your circle of friends or groups, right? Who are you learning from?
The wrong group,
it
right?
brings you down. Yeah. So, I mean, they say what you're the product of the 5 people you hang out with most, but I feel like, again, it just always depends on what's possible. So seeing Sam and what he did with Quantum now, it raises my standards for what a mastermind looks like, right? So do spend time with the people who are doing what you want to do, but also go through the experience of being a customer and what it's like to be their customer, right? So you can see, that's part of the reason I joined Quantum, is to like go through and see what a proper mastermind looks like for entrepreneurs. And, being able to be around 99 founders is really powerful. So there's always another bar, there's always another level, but it does come down to investing in yourself and investing with other people that are in the domain that frankly you're not, like, you want, like, if I'm going to go and hire, if I want to retain more of my wealth, I'm thinking of you first, right? If I want to keep more of my, I don't know how to set up trust, I don't want my accountant doing it, I want someone who knows how to do that really well. So it's like, by you giving that content, by you sharing your knowledge, you're going to be top of mind for those people. So just get yourself in the room with the people that you want to learn from, but also that you can serve and that you can give something as well to them.
Yeah, and I think you said it right, is if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to be the top dog in any room because you're not learning then. You want to be learning from the people around you. And that kind of segues into something you touched on earlier. So when you left Salesforce and started your own business, that's kind of a key critical point that I think a lot of people are going through or thinking about transitioning into. And we did it in very similar ways. When I left FlowServe, I kind of had a couple of clients, so made sure that the drop in income wasn't significant and it could actually go up. So can you talk a little bit about your experience at that point in life when you were, one, looking to leave Salesforce and start something yourself, building those first few clients, and then actually making the leave?
Yeah. So it started, I mentioned a near-death experience. I got stuck on a roller coaster upside down, hanging 180 feet in the air in a flying coaster. So it was pretty traumatic. I was up there for a long time. And interestingly, I'd been listening to a podcast of Lewis Howes, and it had a woman named Bonnie Ware on it who wrote The 5 Regrets of the Dying. So I had already been thinking about dying, and then I'm hanging over thinking I'm going to die on this roller coaster.
Pretty scary stuff.
Yeah. And so that was like, again, I have all these catalysts, these divine intervention moments that I have throughout my life, which changed the course of the future. And that was one of them. And so at that point, I started by just saying, I just want to give back. I wasn't necessarily thinking about doing a business, but I'm like, what is the way I can give back to the most and have the biggest impact right now? And I decided I'm going to make a quick motivational video for people every day for 365 days, right? We were doing this 365-day challenge where it's like, pick one thing you can do every day for a year that's going to have the biggest impact. And I was thinking about what I could do. And I'm like, this is something I can do. It'll help me build a brand. It'll help me give back. It's also going to get me where I want to go. So in the process of doing that, like, I had a bunch of people that like wanted coaching and help, and like, what do you charge? I'm like, well, I don't know what to charge. So it's like, so I started by charging, like, it was nothing. It was like, oh, you're going to pay me for this? I'm just sharing what I know. And so that was like nothing. And then I got my first client, and then I got another client.
All off the back of doing the videos.
Yeah, all on the back of doing the videos. So
the first step is you added so much value in that 1 year by being consistent, focused, and just doing it. Not most people would have stopped and not made the 365 videos, but you committed and you did that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was it's like people talk about content marketing, and it's really, really effective. I'm just living, walking proof. So I had been going on doing the videos, one thing, but I also did like some keynote speeches. I did a couple like for free. And then I did a Salesforce event where I spoke at their sales kickoff and was like sharing success stories. So my general theme was, I'm going to give back, I'm going to share. And that was the joy. It was the joy in the journey of actually giving my gifts, because I thought if I died, I would have been selfish. I don't want to be selfish. I'm going to start giving back. And then it was naturally brought up to me of like, hey, can you help more than this? Can you consult? Can you do a paid engagement? We have the speaker conference. So 2020 comes around, and I joined a program for anyone. Again, I'm in a mastermind with Casey called Quantum, but that's very exclusive for people that have been running their business. But for anyone thinking of running a business, I joined a program called Brand Builders Group, and it was a mastermind for people that are in other jobs that are thinking of going full-time, right? And these guys are really good at what they do. And it was a buddy of mine named Rory Vaden, who I'd known forever, and he runs this mastermind. He's fantastic. And so in 2019, while I was doing these videos, I was also in this Brand Builders Group mastermind where they were helping me develop my brand DNA. What's your messaging? What's your ideal customer profile, your ICP? What is the offer going to be? What are you going to sell them? What are you going to give them? So I came up with this idea of like running coaching as a service and doing a subscription model, but it didn't come to fruition yet. It was like I was just getting the blueprint for the business plan in place for a whole year, because I knew I was at Salesforce and I just wasn't ready to take the leap yet. I wanted to prove out the model. So that was 2019. Then 2020 hit, and I had another rock bottom. You could see a theme. So I actually had a rock bottom with my personal life, where I was living with addiction, and I was hiding it from my wife and my family, and they found out about it, and it broke my wife's heart, and led me to have to take a step back and say, you know what, my ego's out of control again. I've been a top performer at Salesforce. Now my brand is blowing up with all these people wanting me and my following growing. But here I am lying to my family, hiding things. So I took a step back. I went into therapy, went into 12-step recovery. And, fortunately now it's been 34 months. No, not 30. What is February 3rd? February 13th, 2020. It was my sobriety date. So it's been 32 months of being sober from porn and from compulsive sexual behavior, which saved my marriage, and it saved my family. And that to me took my effort. So I put the business on hold so I can go into that recovery. I even put Salesforce on hold. I said, I got to take care of this. This matters most. I can have all the money in the world, but if I don't have a family to share it with, then nothing matters. So same thing. I found the resources. I found people who had walked that walk. I learned from them. I went all in, found a specialized therapist, and I came out so much stronger. I had a baby. And then at that point, I was ready to go all in on the business. So once I dealt with my personal stuff, I say, if something's clouding your vision, you can't see, you've got to take a step back and clear it out so you can take 10 steps forward, right? And that's a theme that I've had to do my whole life. And I did it with my family in 2020. I'd say mid 2020, that's when I went back to Brand Builders. I went back to start building it. And then I launched, formal coaching business. And I filled up and sold out immediately, like within a day, right? And so I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. So I continued that, and I'm still at Salesforce. And then more and more clients now are wanting to work with me. So I created this wait list where, every couple months, when someone dropped off, I would add someone. So now my wait list got bigger and bigger, and I had hundreds of people on this wait list. I'm like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Why am I working at Salesforce and then doing this on the side when I know there's this demand for the business? And then 2021 came, and at that point, I kind of knew I would go all in, because I just couldn't sleep. I couldn't go a day without thinking of all the things I wanted to build in my business. It wasn't just a calling. It was an obsession. So I'm like, I gotta go all in on this. So I finished my year at Salesforce. I finished over plan. And then I went on paternity leave to go spend time with my family, because Salesforce gave us that time. And I also used that time to kind of build out my personal business. And then I found out that Salesforce doubled my quota. So it went from 2 million to 4.3 million. So I would have had to make double the amount of sales to make the same income if I stayed at corporate. And I'm like, you guys just I don't know what
you into doing your own thing.
Yeah, you just made, people say everything happens, but I'm like, that is the biggest blessing. You just made this decision so easy. And so I left Salesforce 2021, launched a broader program in 2022, which also sold out, and then did over 7 figures my first year as a solopreneur, which is unheard of for coaches. So that to me was a byproduct of building the videos in 2019, building the brand 2020, taking care of my personal shit, and then being in a position where I didn't have anything clouding my vision and I could really go all in on the business.
Let's break that down. I think you just did it really well there. So you added so much value by making your YouTube videos so consistently for such a long period of time that you built up a base of people that were watching them, consuming them, that liked you, and building that relationship, right? Then you started adding value, speaking on stages, doing paid gigs, even though you didn't really know what you were doing, but just at least getting out of your comfort zone. Then hit a couple of roadblocks, but were able to step back, clean them up, deal with them, and then have a really solid foundation, which you could then build on. Timing was right at Salesforce. You backed yourself. You started a new family. You got a lot of things still going on here, but you were able to, based on that solid foundation that you'd built through doing the years of work on YouTube and building actual relationships, to then sell out, hit 7 figures in year 1, which is amazing, and then add even more value time and time again. So I think there's some really good tangible steps there. And did I miss anything? Was there anything you'd want to say?
I just can't emphasize the importance. If you have something that's clouding your vision or taking away your focus, that's personal or health related or anything that you're not dealing with, it's going to blow up, right? So I think a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs have a lot of stress and family issues, or maybe working too much. And I just see it over and over again in the top performers that I coach. And I say, you need to take a step back, because once you do that, you can be so much more efficient with your time. So much, if your energy's right, if your health is right, you can thrive in the time that you have during the day. So for me, I kind of had to learn the hard way. But once I did that, it's amazing like how now my wife is fuel for my business. My family's fuel for the business versus a distraction from the business. So it was all like a shift in how I thought about, how this all kind of flows together. So I think it's important to bring up that many people don't talk about.
Yeah, no, definitely. Before we wrap up, let's talk a little bit about mentorship and the groups that you became part of and how you found them, what they helped you get through. So I'm similar to yourself. I'm part of a lot of different groups of individuals that help me, from sales and marketing to agencies to operations and mentorship, life, health, spirituality, pretty much everything across the board, because I really value that. What have some of your experiences been in finding the right groups, and what advice would you give to people listening and watching on how to find the right mentor group for them?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of groups out there that are kind of, they might sound the same, but there's some advice. So I can share what I did in my group, and then I can share some advice on how to evaluate what mastermind to join. So for me, I think the most important thing is like, what are you looking for right now? What do you need right now? So that's the context that paints the picture of what type of mastermind. So in 2017, when I started with this journey of masterminds, what I needed is to grow sales. What I needed to realize I could do it. So I found a sales training mastermind for top sales performers, the top 1%, to learn what they were doing differently. So that's one that I joined for 2 years. Then I realized, hey, I want to build a personal brand, right? So then in 2019, I joined Brand Builders Group to help me launch and figure out what my brand was going to represent, what my offer was going to be, right? So it was very specific. Then in 2020, when I was doing the addiction, it was like, okay, I need help for addiction, and specifically an addiction that I was struggling with, because it wasn't alcohol or drugs, it was related to sex. So fundamentally, I wanted to find resources that can help with that. So it was a 12-step group, and it was, through my sponsor and through also the therapist. It was all very hyper specific to compulsive sexual behaviors. So that to me was, things that I struggle with. I didn't even know. So if I just saw an addiction therapist, that wouldn't have been enough. I wanted someone that was, specifically around sex and porn. So that helped tremendously. And I can talk openly about it because I don't do any of that anymore, and I dealt with it, right? So fundamentally, that was the third group. And then when I joined Sam Ovens' group, right, it was all about, okay, my business is great. How do I get to 7 figures in, right? I need to build out a team. I need to make sure that I'm not compromising my values. I don't want to lose, the things that are important to me, my health and my family. I want to do this the right way. I don't want to build a business and work 80 hours a week. I want to do it in a way that fits my lifestyle that I want, and surrounding myself with the right people. So his message and his appeal of 7 figures in really worked for me. So what I would encourage you to think about is number one, what do you want most right now? Right. And think about a mastermind that can help you in that specific area. Number two, right, is who is delivering the content, right? For so many groups and so many gurus out there or whatever. Like, I don't think about other people. I worry about what I'm doing, but I know a lot of the programs out there that I've seen or, that are advertised may be run by people who haven't actually done the job. So if I want to get help for running a marathon, I'm not going to get coaching from a trainer that hasn't run a marathon. I want someone who actually has done it and helps people do it. If I want to get financial advice, I'm not going to go to someone who's bankrupt and who has credit card debt and who basically is being investigated by the SEC. I'm going to someone who has never been audited. I'm going to someone who has helped billionaires or millionaires and who does it themselves, right? So you want to learn from someone who has done the thing you want to learn from at the highest possible level. And the third thing I think about is community. Is it just taking a course, or can you be part of a community where you can actually network and connect with other like-minded people? Because it's one thing to learn from someone, it's another thing to learn from your peers. So I always say there's 3 levels of mentorship that help. There's the mentor, right, which is the person you're learning from. There's the running mates, which are your peers alongside that you're running with to try and achieve the same goals. And then there's the mentee, somebody you can take and teach the content you're learning to someone else to pay it forward. And that helps reinforce whatever you're learning. So you really want to be in an environment where you can get those running mates and also potentially mentees that you can teach and help lift up along the way.
I think that's great the way you broke that down into 3 different segments, because it's so true, is that we're all part of a bigger world community, and then find your specific silos within it. And I think that's when Tony Robbins talks about this a lot, is that's when you become the teacher, right? If you can learn something and then teach it to somebody else, that shows that you've really understood it and you can excel at it. So in that community section, I think is really important, because we all fall off along the way. No one's going to have a home run. It's going to be ups and downs. So having a community and the running mates there to help lift you and kind of push you in the right direction is so critical, I think. So it's definitely really important. So as we wrap up, Ian, thank you for your time. How can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is just youtube.com/Ian Koniak. That's where I put all my sales tips. I also put mindset and habits and time management, everything to help you perform better. If there's entrepreneurs listening to this, check out that channel. If anything I shared resonated on a personal level, if you struggle with some of the issues that I know I struggle with self-worth or maybe addictions or anything, LinkedIn's where I'm most active in social channels. I'm not really active on Instagram or Facebook much because of the nature of who I sell to and what I sell. It's more LinkedIn. So shoot me a direct message, shoot me a connection request. If you do, I'll get you a link to my newsletter, to my subscription for YouTube. And if you are interested in working together, if you want to take your sales to the next level, and specifically if you're in business to business sales, I do offer sales coaching. There is a wait list right now, but you just go to untapyoursalespotential.com/waitlist, or go to untapyoursalespotential.com if you want to learn about the program. And there's a bunch of buttons where you can join the waitlist if that's something that you're interested in joining.
Great. What we'll do is we'll put the links below on YouTube so you can get straight into contacting Ian on those various mediums. I want to shout out Together CFO. Thank you again for sponsoring the podcast and making this all happen. Ian, thank you so much for your time and going really deep and sharing some vulnerable things. We really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, KC. Great to see you again. And best of luck to everyone.
Okay. Bye.